Welcome to our podcast, We'll Think of Something. This is Jam.
And this is Daniella. In episode 4 of our podcast, we speak of Jim Cathcart. All right, so I wanted to start by telling you guys this story because I read about it. I heard about it first, and then I read more in depth, and it's just blowing my mind.
It seems like you're stressing out.
It's because I can't wrap my mind around it.
Well, I'm very curious.
All right. So I started listening to the Serial podcast, and
the Serial podcast.
Yeah, it's the big podcast. It's really popular. Millions and millions of downloads. So
I've never heard.
It's cool. It's not important. I'm just telling you how I ran across this. So the second season was about a prisoner of war, and they casually mentioned another American that was in captivity with the Taliban as of right now. So I kind of heard it, and they mentioned it, and they said the woman was pregnant. I'm like, oh wow, that's crazy. So I found this woman's name, Caitlin Coleman, and I search it, and it's just the craziest story. Her and her husband, who's Canadian, she's American, went on this backpacking trip. They started in Russia. They ended up in Afghanistan. Why they ended up in Afghanistan?
Not really a destination.
Right. There's some speculation, but essentially they end up in Afghanistan. They wind up in the hands of the Taliban. She's pregnant. And this is in 2012. She has her baby in captivity, obviously. And there's a couple videos of them that surface in 2012, what the usual thing where they're being fed certain information and they're supposed to be speaking to the American government, saying, hey, get us out of here, kind of thing. And then they appear again in, I think, last summer, like July 2016 or so.
So we jumped 4 years?
I don't know if there was no communication in the 4 years, but there was a period of time where they hadn't really heard anything from them. And they appear again in 2016, and there's a second child. So somehow this woman got pregnant again by her husband because, the kid's pretty white. And
it's the same race, must be the same product.
Yeah, and but I'm saying that there's a possibility that the Taliban could have been, but it seems like it's the husband's, and she had sex and had another child in captivity. And now there's 2 children that were born in captivity, and they're still there.
Hold on. So you're telling me that this family, the husband and the wife, they're being held against their will?
Right.
And it's been 5 years?
Right.
Did you read anything about anything being done?
That's the thing. It doesn't seem really, because they got the story I was originally listening to, they got this POW out. They exchanged Guantanamo Bay prisoners for this soldier, but this civilian woman and her husband are still over there.
Okay, hold on. So forgive me if I'm confused.
No, it's cool.
Okay, so the podcast that you were listening to spoke about a prisoner that was taken in captivity, and then he was traded out for
5 of our prisoners.
But somehow that family is still there, and no one knows why they're still there?
Well, I don't know. Of course, there's just speculation as to the government's not going to tell us exactly what's going on. But the thing that kind of throws a wrench into it is that he was previously married to a woman whose father had ties with Al-Qaeda. And there's speculation that he was converting to Islam.
That's
a big piece of information.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the husband
And if your
of this
destination
woman.
is Afghanistan, that just puts up a red flag in my brain anyway.
Right.
Who goes to Afghanistan voluntarily?
A lot
If
of
you're
his
backpacking through Europe, you don't want to end up in Afghanistan. Oh, let's make sure we get to Afghanistan.
not
because
an
Europe's
ideal
nice there.
place.
Pit stop real quick.
Well, so what his friends and family were kind of saying is that he was really into humanitarian projects and he thought he was going to go there and do some good. I don't know how true that is. All other signs kind of point to, hey, I'm converting to Islam, let me join up kind of thing. So I couldn't believe it. And the fact that they had a second child was just stuck in my head.
Well, see, I mean, that part doesn't shock me all that much.
Really?
Because, okay, you're in let's say that you are being held against your will.
Right.
Right, by a Taliban or, whatever group and you're being kept in a room. If you're with your husband or wife, what else do you have to do? You're locked in a room for 5 years and you can't leave. So they had sex and ended up having another child. I mean, that's not shocking to me in any way.
Yes.
I think what's not shocking to me is the whole thing, because I don't know, with what you're telling me, for some reason the first thing that pops into my head is that they want to be there.
I mean, maybe they did at some point, but I think the situation that they're in now is way more than they thought. You know what I mean? Like maybe they were going there to find something or to join or whatever, but now they're just in way over their heads.
So are these... you didn't specify what kind of videos were shown. They were...
Well, the first one I saw, which I think was closer to 2012, was just the two of them, and they were speaking, just pleading to the American government.
Okay.
But when you watch those kinds of things, you don't know how much is coming from them. You don't know what their captors are telling them to say. It's kind of hard to, suss out what's real and what's not. So, and it seems really irresponsible to begin with to go there, but then to bring another child into it, I think is my...
Oh, that's your issue is, that they're consciously bringing a child into the world while they're being held and kept. Why would you do that?
Right.
And maybe they ran out of condoms.
I don't know.
Take her pills.
It just...
She didn't get a depot shot,
It just seems like that would be the last thing on my mind. If I was in that situation, you're just so terrified.
5 years, though, after 5 years of sitting in a room, you got a lot of time to do nothing. I don't know. I have a hard time giving an opinion just because I don't think I have any information really.
It's really vague. I mean, you can only speculate. Yeah, exactly.
I'm just thinking about so many different reasons why they're still there. Like the whole second child thing didn't even come up to me.
I don't know why I got stuck on that.
That when you said that to me was kind of like they wanted that to happen. You know what I'm saying? Like it to me it kind of sounded along the lines of settlement is what it sounds like to me. I don't know.
Saying that the second child would make it more likely that they were going to get out of there, kind of thing.
No, I think like they want to be there for some reason. I'm not sure.
Oh,
why.
you're saying they're like settling into like a home.
Like they're like, okay, this is what we're gonna do. Like we're gonna have a second child anyway. I don't know.
Yeah, well, there's kind of two sides there. Like if they're there and they are being held against their will, what you're saying is maybe they had a second child. Maybe that would play on the heartstrings of the American government.
Right.
To be like, oh my God, we really have to get these people out.
Or
of there.
that
children.
Yeah, there's children involved or whatever. The other side of the thing is, I mean, are they working for the Taliban? Are they part of the Taliban? And are they just trying to get prisoners released,
right,
on behalf of the Taliban, saying
right.
to the government, we really need to get out of here. You need to release such, whatever prisoners we may have.
Yeah, I mean, that's a possibility from this guy's background. I mean, it doesn't look good.
Right.
When you have that kind of thing going on. But I think also what was kind of striking is that there's a picture of the two of them as they're leaving for this hiking venture, and they're overweight. They're two overweight individuals, and they
American.
Right. Well, one's Canadian.
Oh, yeah, I love fat Canadians.
That's true. We're converting everybody to the obesity. But when you see them now, they just look pale and just gaunt. They just look awful. So that kind of obviously they could be doing that as if they were still like plump Americans. It might not look so good, but
So you think that they're obviously limited to their resources for sure, because they're in captivity.
Right. They don't have McDonald's.
No, they don't.
So, yeah, it's possible that it was just but they looked so terrible from when they started, and they just look scary looking.
Yeah.
This is I don't know, I'm kind of spooked by this story because I feel like everything I say, I have to be careful with what I say. Does that make sense?
Like they're coming after you?
No,
Oh.
more like if I say, I just don't want to throw a theory out there and then it'd be completely wrong, and then have.
Well, that's all. I mean, we're sitting in a room
Yeah, that's
speculating
true.
on
That's
with very little information.
Just
Right.
because these are
This
like,
could almost be just a hypothetical. Hey, what if?
I think it is more of a
People are
what if for
Americans,
sure.
okay,
It's just a
yes.
trip that it's been 5 years and they're still there. It kind of makes me wonder what's going on in their heads. That's why, like, having a second kid, if that's what you said, like the theory, if that's just them trying to find another way for the government to, like, try harder or whatever,
Well, if the timeline is what's bothering you, the soldier that they just got back was also in captivity for 4 or 5 years before they got him out.
So it takes that long to do these things.
That's apparently
Wow.
the going time for Taliban captivity. So
Did they say any other occupations before they were captive?
I don't remember coming across it. I know the man, they were talking about like his college education. They were kind of going more into his stuff because obviously some stuff looks kind of weird with his background. So, and a common theme with all of those is Guantanamo Bay, because I guess when the soldier was over there, they were often comparing the treatment that they were giving him to the treatment that we give our prisoners in Guantanamo Bay. And I guess it's a really big point of contention for them. They are really unhappy at how we treat our Guantanamo Bay prisoners. And it came up again in this case because the Canadian guy's ex-wife, who is Palestinian, her brother was sent to Guantanamo Bay and was treated very harshly, I guess.
That information is something that you gotta tell us in the because
there was a lot to unpack. I'm sorry.
Sense now.
There was a lot to unpack. So
now the conspiracy theories are rolling in extra hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what I'd been reading a lot online was people saying, well, they did this to themselves. Why should we go ahead and rescue them and give away our prisoners for people who are stupid enough to do this?
What's the deal with trading prisoners? Do you guys know anything about that?
Like as far as what?
Like with what's going on right now with the story we're talking about. So like if we were to trade our prisoners for them, like why do we do that?
Well, it's tougher because they're civilians. Like if you think about it in a really harsh way, they don't have any value to us as a government, whereas those prisoners do.
Okay.
So I don't know even if a prisoner swap would be valid with this type of thing.
Yeah. I guess what I'm saying is, or asking is that I don't know, like why would the Taliban want our prisoners?
Just to get something from the government.
Oh.
It's trickier with civilians.
I don't see why they wouldn't kidnap people for ransom, like happens in South America. All the people get kidnapped for monetary ransom.
Yeah.
Same thing with an organization like the Taliban. Probably tries to get their hands on American citizens to be able to trade them for people that we might be holding that are important to them. I would think that the government probably considers military people or people that might have information that they don't want to get into quote-unquote enemy hands. It's more important to get them back than a couple of,
That's right. That's where it gets tricky. And though that the one guy's Canadian, so now the Canadian government's involved too.
Oh, that's right.
So when I read that, I'm like, how have I never heard this before?
Yeah.
And what?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, what other... It sounds like he has some weird connections, though. Canada is Canadian. Was he born in Canada? He has Canadian citizenship.
Yeah. As far as I understand, he's completely Canadian, but he just met this woman who sounded like she had dual Canadian and Palestinian citizenship. And they got married, but her family had ties to Al-Qaeda.
I thought she was American.
No, the first wife is Palestinian.
We're talking about the first wife?
Oh,
right
the
now?
first
wife,
Okay.
yes. The wife he's with now and who's in captivity with him is American.
Okay.
So.
And probably thinking, wow, I chose the wrong guy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Just so much of it seems weird and against anything I would ever do, so.
I guess the moral is don't go backpacking in Afghanistan.
Yeah, I would think so.
And that's what it has. I mean, they went there, so there has to be some reason why you go there.
Yeah, there's gotta be a reason.
Yeah, I don't
Normal
know.
people just looking to see the world don't go to Afghanistan.
I'm kind of tripping on, those are like people, I don't know. It just trips me out, like what they're going through.
That's the thing,
Oh,
you
wow,
know?
Yeah.
When you start thinking about
Like
being...
Because I think about like sitting here and having this podcast with you, and then thinking about what it would be like to be a woman in captivity with 2 children now, and being held against my will by the Taliban. Like that's a really shitty situation. You know,
Yeah,
like
it
I'm
is.
really grateful for sitting here right now. I don't know.
And to be those kids to just be born into it.
Yeah, like what the hell is that? Like those
No, you wouldn't know any different, so it wouldn't be as bad for them.
Yet the one's coming up on 4 or 5
4
years
years,
old
yeah.
though.
He's understanding things.
He's gonna
She's
start. Yeah, they're 2
Well,
boys.
I mean, but if you're a kid though, and you grow up from a baby, you don't know anything else, so you don't miss anything.
Right.
That's kind of true.
It's like, did you
It's
guys
like
see
Room.
Room? Yeah.
Same thing probably in my
It's the same thing.
You know, the kid doesn't know, any better. He thinks that, this is the
Wait, what is this?
Room?
the
Yeah.
movie Room.
Never seen it.
I thought you might have. The kid grows up in a shed, essentially. He was born.
A girl gets abducted by this guy
Mhm.
when she's a teenager. He keeps her in this shed in his backyard. That's where she lives. She has this little area and a bed, and he comes in there, rapes her every now and then.
Okay.
She ends up having a child. So this child grows up in this shed. So she
Right.
had an 8x8 room, where they have, and I don't know, do they have like running water? Or,
Yeah, I think they had like a toilet
like a
and
little
everything
bathroom
there.
and,
Yeah,
this
kitchen.
is- yeah. This small little area, but that's all he knows is the room. He never leaves the room. With his mom, he grows up and he's probably 6 or 7 or something. When
Yeah,
they
maybe.
escape. And they end up escaping and getting out. But the kind of the point is like he grows up in this scenario and he doesn't know any different. So he's not, upset about it. He actually misses the room when they leave because that's what he knows.
That's home, right?
It's like if you lived in this room right here and you never left it. You don't know what it's like outside. There's no windows here.
For 7
it's you and your
years.
mom. You love your mom loves you and raises you, and you don't know any different. You don't know you're being held against your will. You don't know, this is a bad situation.
That's so crazy
You
to
have
think
no
about,
perspective.
especially when I looked around
That's
this
what-
room.
that's
I was
what-
like,
I was like, I kind
That
of
would suck.
anxiety kind of rolled in there when you said that. Like, man, that would
Open the door.
for real.
It's a great movie.
A little claustrophobic now.
But yeah,
Is
I
it
mean,
a true story? I don't think that.
no, I don't
No.
think so. It was based on a book, based on a novel. But that's
Great movie though. You should see it.
Yeah, you should definitely see it.
Is it on Netflix?
I don't know if it's on
No, I don't think so. But that's what these kids are dealing with.
Yeah,
But-
just
Right, and then that's kind of the point is that if they don't know if they're born in captivity, they don't even know it's captivity. So
no.
I don't know if they'll ever get out, but
I mean, apparently it takes our government 5 whatever years.
yeah,
Well, maybe.
I guess
Maybe our fifth
they're
year.
coming up on their time.
So shit.
All right, well, let's switch topics here. Since you're going to work, let's talk about work. I thought it would be a good thing to talk about because we've all been or are managers at certain points, and we've seen people and how they work, and I've almost noticed possibly a generational thing, or if it's just an age thing about work ethic. And I'm gonna steal a word from Adam Carolla. He says grit, and I think that's a great way to describe being a go-getter, being a hard worker, showing up when you're supposed to show up and that kind of thing. So I don't know. I just wanted to see what you guys thought about it being a generational thing or being, just I'm a teenager and I'll come to work when I want to come to work,
Mm-hmm.
or what.
Well, I think it can be both. I mean, I don't really buy into the generational thing necessarily. Things change from generation to generation as far as technology and how people kind of think and view things. But I think it's more of an age thing. People tend to be less responsible when they're younger, and you kind of gain responsibility as you get older, and you're forced to take on more responsibilities.
Right.
But I think it's also just certain people. Some people just have an innate grit to them that other people don't have as much, I think.
From
That
their
some people-
parents, though? I mean, where does that come from?
That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, some people just seem to be hard workers when others just aren't. And it probably does come from your upbringing, I think. If your parents, I mean, if that's what you saw your parents do, I think it's more of a, the argument I'm trying to think is like culture versus
Nature versus nurture?
nature versus nurture. That's what I was trying to come up with. And I think it's probably more nurture, like I can just say for myself growing up, my dad was very much a hard-working person. He worked 10, 12-hour days, 6 days a week to take care of me and my 5 brothers and sisters. That's what I grew up with.
Mm-hmm.
Dad goes to work every single day. Mom stays home, takes care of us. And, we were poor, but we never wanted for anything. We always had a roof. We always had, bills were paid. It wasn't, but that's the way life was. You go out and you work so that you can afford to live.
Right.
My parents weren't lazy at all, So I think if you grow up with lazy parents, you probably end up, that's just the way it is, right? Just my opinion.
I think the opposite happens though too, where certain parents are working very hard and their kids almost rebel against that. I don't know if there's a certain pressure that's being put on them that they just shun, and then they end up going the other way, where they're just gonna play video games and.
It's kind of funny because my parents, they came to America like in the late 80s, I think it was. And they've hustled to this day, they've been working so hard. So I grew up similar to how you grew up in the sense where my parents were both very hardworking. But my mom worked as much as my dad did. So while they were both hustling, I did watch them do that all the time. So it was something that I got used to. And then when I hit my teenage years, that's when I was like, I don't want to work and get anything done. But as I grew older, when I passed like 17 or 18, like the grit started kicking in a little bit more. Like I was always a go-getter in other things, but not towards like work ethic at all. But when I started working, every job I got was like, I'm going to be a manager here. So I would get the manager position. And then I would get bored of it, and then I would go to another place, and then I'm like, I'm going to be a manager here. So then I would get the manager position until to this day. So I don't know. I think my mom was probably like the biggest example because she has her degree in business management, and I think that came, I don't know if, like, she didn't really teach me anything now I think about it, like by the book, but by morals and all that, maybe it was a part of it. I don't really know. But I would say that I know pretty well on how to do that. So I don't know what. I can't tell you. Could be both.
Yeah, and is it a matter of how much responsibility is given to you? I mean, if your parents do everything for you and you never have to pick yourself up on your own.
Yeah, now that you say that, it was a little bit of both. It was like I knew that they were there for my support, but my mom would always push me to get it done by myself. Like if I was, for example, when I was applying for financial aid, you know what I mean? She's like, you're smart, you can do it. Like, you can figure it out. Like, I'm here if you need me, but you know how to do it. And I have, like, a friend back home whose parents did all of it for her. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like, I was like, oh, how, like, I asked her for advice. She's like, oh, I have no idea. My mom filled everything out for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, things like that, but a lot of things like that.
Yeah, that's another thing too. Is that when I was growing up, I was very much of the mindset. If I saw something I wanted, I was told, you can have that. Just figure out a way to get it. When I was like, I think 12 or 13, I saw a mini bike in a catalog. And I asked my parents, "Can I get this mini bike?" It was like $300 something. They said, "Sure." That was it. So, get a job, find a way to make some money, and then buy the mini bike.
Exactly.
No problem with that. Fine.
Yeah.
So I did. I got a paper route, and I ended up buying the mini bike. And that's the way. And from that point on, like when I was, even a young teenager, I was doing things like, earning money through paper routes. And when I was 14, I started working at my dad's garage, and always earning some money. So, I wanted a desk. The other kids are spending money on pizza and stuff, and I saved up and I bought a $400 roll top desk that I had in my room. So I was always kind of like, there's something I want. All right, how do I get it? And that's the way I always was. When I was about that age, maybe 13, 14, I wanted to have a telephone in my room. Now, this is back before cell phones, because remember, I'm old. So telephones were attached to the wall in the kitchen, and they had cords on them. You had to stand there next to it and talk to your friends who's standing in the kitchen. I wanted a telephone in my room so I could talk to my girlfriend on the phone.
Oh.
So, and I didn't want to stand in the kitchen to do that. So one day I figured out, I followed the wires from the kitchen. My parents, every Sunday we used to go to my grandmother's for dinner. When we got to be a certain age, if we didn't want to go to Nana's that week, my parents were like, you're old enough, and as we got to, certain teenage years, they would let us stay home if we wanted to. So one Sunday I decided I'd stay home. So I was in the house by myself, which this is a small 3-bedroom house with 8 people in it, so being home by yourself was a big deal.
Yeah.
So I was home by myself, and I'm like, I'm going to get a phone in my room. So I went and I followed the wires through the wall and saw where they went, and they went into the basement stairway, and I saw where they came out, and I saw how they attached. It was 4, they break into 4 wires, and they attached to this thing. I'm thinking to myself, all right, I can go to Radio Shack, I can buy some wire that looks just like this, attach it here, run that wire up into my room, and I'll have a phone out there.
Jesus.
By the time my parents came home, I had a phone in my room.
Wow.
They didn't realize it for a few days, and then they realized, how does he have a phone in his room? And what I did was I attached the wires, and we had a drop ceiling in the kitchen, so I pushed the panels up, and I ran the wire over the top of the drop ceiling, drilled a hole in the wall, and I'm like 16 years old.
Using drills.
And then, just drilling holes in the wall. They were like, okay, fine. They never said I couldn't do. My parents never told me I couldn't do anything.
Right.
I didn't always ask permission, like that. I just went and did it. Like, oh, that's pretty cool. He put a phone in his phone. I don't know how he did it. Years later, my dad was pissed because he wanted to take down the drop ceiling and raise the ceiling in the kitchen. They were remodeling. And when he dropped the drop ceiling, he saw all the holes that I had drilled up there. He said, it was a mess. I had to fill all these holes. He couldn't believe it. I was like, yeah, that was like 5 years ago. But I was just industrious that way, in that they never told me no. They never gave me a lot of guidance when you bring up like the financial aid thing for college. When I was in high school, neither of my parents went to college. My dad didn't make it past 8th grade. He left high school to work, support his mom. His father died when he was really young. So they had no experience with applying for colleges. And in high school, I was in all college prep courses and AP courses and stuff, and all my friends, that's just what you did. The next thing was, now we're applying to colleges.
Yeah.
So I got information from them, and I bought myself a Barron's book of all the schools, and I went through it all, and applied to a bunch of different schools. And I went to my mom, and I said, hey, Mom, I need your financial information, like your mortgage, your bank account information. And she's like, what? I'm like, I'm filling out all these forms, they need all your information.
Yeah, yeah.
So she sat down at the kitchen table with me and, filled out her part, and I basically took it to her, said, hey, this is what I need.
Yeah, that's similar to what I did, but on a computer. I just brought my laptop over to my mom's.
Right.
Here you go. It's your part.
I actually had to take a pen out and write the information down.
Oh my god. Barbaric.
But I don't know if I learned to be that way. If you ask why was I that way? My parents never. I don't remember them anyways beating into me. You have to be responsible, and if you want something, you have to earn it. But I just kind of picked that up naturally because that's the way you. How else are you going to get stuff? So because they never provided things or did things for me. So if I wanted something, I did it.
I think that's a major part of it, the not providing for.
And there's 2 ways I can look at that too. I can either look at the fact that they helped me be a more independent person, or they were just crappy parents and didn't do crap for me.
I thought about that.
I choose to believe the latter.
I remember there
because I
being.
love my parents and they're two of the best people ever, but you know.
I remember there being one point where I was so frustrated with trying to figure something out. I forget what it was, but that's when I was like, man, like my mom doesn't want to help me. But as I got older, I realized that she was really helping me. You know what I mean? So I look at it like as a latter way, totally,
Yeah.
the positive way.
And I don't know
For
that they've
sure.
thought about it all that much because I've thought
Yeah.
about, now that I'm older and I have kids, and I'd have arguments with their mother when the kids were younger and needed help with homework. I was always the homework helper. My wife didn't want any part of that. She didn't want to. I don't want to go into any of that. But anyways, my wife would complain if I would help my kids with their homework. Andrew especially. I remember times when if he was doing a math problem and he didn't understand exactly how to do it and he needed some guidance, I was there to provide the guidance, and I would sit there with him in his textbook and look at it and help him through it.
Right.
She was concerned that I was helping him too much. He needs to be more independent. He needs to figure it out on his own. And that's good to a certain point, but if you're trying to figure it out and you can't figure it out and you need help and you ask for help and you're told figure it out on your own, I think that has the opposite effect too. So there's kind of a balance there, and you want to give guidance and you want to help. You don't want to do things for them.
Yeah, I think that's what the fine line is, the guidance between the guidance and actually doing whatever the task is.
Right.
Because you could just, like the whole, you guys have been managers, right? We spoke about that.
Mm-hmm.
Like if someone's struggling to do something, but you believe that they can do it, you kind of just hint at them certain things, like what would you do next, and then they could figure it out on their own. I feel like that, like the proper guidance is exactly what we're talking, like what we need or what kids need. Yes, because then they'd be too dependent,
Right.
But I feel like I'm kind of the odd case here, because my parents did a lot for me. I had it really good, in that, I just moved out of my parents' house. I had little to none responsibility as far as the actual household, and I have been working since I was 16, but that was kind of it, like as far as responsibility goes, school and whatever part-time job I had at the time. So I feel like I can be lazy, but I don't know. It's kind of also working itself out because, like you said, I definitely had that visualization of them working hard, and my dad works all the time, especially during tax season, and my mom works really hard as a teacher, so I still had that base example of what you should be doing.
Right.
So I don't know. I feel like I'm just coming into it a little bit later than maybe you guys.
Well, I don't know. I also grew up in a fast city. You did too, right?
No, I grew up more rural.
Oh, did you?
I was born in Dorchester.
Oh, okay. For some reason, I thought you grew up in Boston.
Well, Dorchester is a Boston suburb.
Oh, is it?
It's like
Okay.
Buffalo to here. But we moved to Plymouth when I was 7. So Plymouth is about 40 miles south. Like it's right near Cape Cod. It's the last town before Cape Cod. So it's definitely a more rural. It's not a city at all. Biggest town in the state. Huge area-wise, but
I think regarding age and what were we talking? We were talking about age and like management. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, if it's just it's just a matter of being a teenager where you have other things going on and you want to be doing your own thing and not having all that responsibility.
Right. I think as for me, I've always been the person that ultimately doesn't want to be told what to do. Not in a stubborn way, kind of just like I want to express like my creativity and my innovation towards like a business, for example. And so I would always try to work my way up as fast as I could. And also pick up and learn things, obviously. But I've been told multiple times that I've been someone's favorite manager out of like all the ones they've ever had, typically older, like in their 30s or 40s. And I don't know if that's because all the jobs I've worked were all in a similar age range.
The people that are telling you this are in their 30s and 40s, or people who are...
Both, actually. The people that told me recently are about my age, in their 20s. And then the people that are a little bit older, there's like one or two now, but prior to this job I have now, there have been a couple, like people in their 40s, that said that they like me as their manager. So I don't think it's an age thing, because, well, hold on, I don't know anymore. Maybe it is an age thing, because I'm tripping, because...
Wait a second. So I'm more speaking to the fact of the teenager who has the part-time job and, for example, can't get there on time, or when they are there, they're on their phone during their shift, or, they're standing in the corner talking to their friends.
Are you talking about work ethic?
Yeah, when they're actually in the job, or even just getting to the job.
Okay.
And when they're scheduled.
This went off the railroad track.
Which is fine, we can talk about
crazy.
that too.
So you're saying, do you think that only younger people do it? I think that's bullshit, because I've managed people that are older that are, I don't know if they're ignorant or stubborn or whatever it is, or omniscient. They just don't want to listen to me. Okay, like they'll think that their way is better, that they shouldn't listen to a younger person, so they will go take like extra minutes on breaks, or they will say that, come up with an excuse or something like that, which has happened. And then I have also managed people that are my age or kind of younger who don't give a shit at all. They're just like, I just need a part-time job so I could pay to get fucked up or something, like, so I wouldn't be able to tell you.
Yeah, I mean, it's an attitude thing.
Yeah, for sure.
And whether it's kids, teenagers, or, older people, you either have that, getting back to that work ethic, you either have that work ethic or you don't. Like when I'm at work, you and I, for example, when I'm at work, my phone is off. I don't, hear it, see it. It's, I'm there for that 8 hours or 6.5 hours, minus breaks or whatnot. And when I'm on my break, I'll check my phone, play a game on my phone, do whatever. But when I'm at work, when I'm punched in on the clock, I'm there to work. And I actually feel guilt if I'm on the clock and not working. Like if I'm sitting around having a conversation with a coworker for 15 to 20 minutes, I start to feel this guilt clawing at me, like, you're not doing work and you're getting paid right now, and it bothers the hell out of me. I'll text you sometimes and realize that you're at work doing, whatever,
nothing,
talking to me, or whatever, and it just baffles my mind, that people like that. But I see people like that, and everywhere. At my job, I see people like that, that it bothers the crap out of me when someone will be sitting in the lab, on a computer, and I'll see they're watching YouTube, or, I'm like, what are you doing? I don't have time to do all the work that I want to get done in the time that I'm here.
Right.
How do you have time to, just sit around and do nothing? Well, it really bothers me, like, deeply. I get upset about it.
I think that particular thing with that type of example where they're kind of wasting the company's time, and it's just a matter of not caring. They don't care about their job. They don't take pride in what they do.
Right.
So I'll watch a YouTube video.
Right. And I think that's kind of like, right, and that's, I think it goes back to again, kind of a work ethic, only because, I've had crappy jobs, but I've always still worked that way. Even if I hated my job at Corner Bakery, and they promoted me, and I still hated it, but I worked hard because that's what I do. Like, I can't do anything else,
So that's the pride in your work, I would say. No matter what it is,
what the work
this is my
exactly.
job. I will
if
do
I'm
it
gonna
well.
shovel shit, I'm gonna be the best shit shoveler that you've ever seen.
Damn straight, dude.
That's right.
That's awesome. That's inspiring.
But that's how you get places too. You're not always gonna have the all-star job, but if you shovel shit and you do it well, and somebody's gonna say, Jim shovels shit really well.
I'm not really someone who is. I'm not always looking for promotions. I don't have a goal when I get to a job. Like, I want to be manager. I want to be here. 5 years I want to be at this level, I want to be making this much money. I never think about any of that, but almost every job that I've had, I've been promoted at. This job that I'm in now, I've been promoted fivefold in a little over a year, 5 like pay grades.
Years.
And I never asked for any of them. I didn't apply for the promotion I just got. I wasn't going to apply for it. I was talked into it by like 3 managers came to me and said, Jim, why didn't you apply for this job? I'm like, no, they're not going to give me that job. I've been here, a year. I'm like,
right.
No, you're perfect for it. Apply for it. And I applied for it. I got it. So I don't have that drive to, I'm working hard to get to an end. I'm only working hard for the sake of the work, which is weird.
No.
But it's rare, I think.
Yeah, a lot of people should like have that steady pride, like the strong work ethic, because it's, man, when you find that one person, especially if you're like, I'm a hiring manager, and when I find that person that I just know will do really good, I'm so happy. I'm like, we're on the same level.
And when you're doing your schedule and you're going, oh, thank God I have this person, this time, I have that person on.
And then sometimes you look at the schedule and you're like, shit, I am fucked for the 8 hours. I'm done. I'm just gonna accept my fate today. Oh man, that's crazy. I'm not gonna say names, but yeah.
Let's call them out right now. Liz.
No,
I don't. Hopefully, there's not a Liz that you're.
There actually is a Liz, but she's not on my floor.
I'm sorry, Liz.
She's gonna hear this. Oh no!
She's actually one of my favorite workers.
I don't even know you, Liz. I'm sorry.
You would love Liz, okay?
I'm sure I
Liz
would.
is great. She's the best person ever.
Love her.
You guys know a little bit about like cafes, or you've been to a cafe. You ever seen
Worked in a cafe.
Oh, that's right. You know how when there's peak times?
Yep.
Liz is my girl for peak times. Okay,
there you go.
Like she will back me like no tomorrow, and it'll be the two of us running the whole place, and I don't need to worry about anything.
Yeah.
So,
The problem sometimes though is that those people end up getting used and abused. Yeah, because they are reliable and because we know they're gonna get their work done.
I would never abuse my workers though.
But I mean, abuse as in I need this really crappy job done and I need it done well and quickly.
Right.
Well, the way I see it is that, like, I would never put someone in a situation that I wouldn't want to put myself into. So like, at my job, they call me the union because I fight for everyone that works there. So, like, there's, like, my boss, the owner, and then there's me and a co-manager, and then there's the rest of the crew. So, these guys usually end up coming to me because I will fight so hard for them if I see to it fit, like, if it's reasonable, then I'll do as much as I can. So, while we're working, if there's shit that needs to be shoveled, and I know I won't do that, I will make a compromise with this person. I will do it together because, like, you know what I mean?
That's what I used to do all the time at Regal.
Like, I can't just be like go do this because I don't want to. No, it's just like, okay, all right.
I'll help you.
Yeah, let's do this together.
Right. Let's clean up this puke.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
That sucks.
Yeah.
Puke.
Well, that was Regal.
Poop?
Oh,
yeah.
Awful.
Like in the bathroom, right?
Sometimes.
My
there was
goodness.
definitely a turd in a theater that someone had to scoop up.
Wait, tell me.
I was not on shift, luckily.
How was it being in upper management in a theater? Like.
Well, you weren't upper management.
No, I was just one management.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Well, how was that?
So crazy. Every day was something different, and you couldn't always know what you were walking into. Sometimes you would just get called, and you're like, what?
Because when I walk into... I remember being younger and thinking, I'm going to work at a movie theater because it's like free movies, it's awesome. And then when I became friends with
free
you...
movies is great.
Yeah, exactly. But when I became friends with you and the horror stories you tell me, it's like, maybe this job it's definitely a service job. For sure.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of enjoyed it for what it was. I mean, it was interesting.
We met Rachel.
Yeah, I met my girlfriend there. I met a lot of good friends there. I met Jim there. I met Chanel there. Like
all the people on the podcast.
Yeah. I mean, I really met some great people there, so I can't complain about my time there at all. But
that's awesome.
There were definitely some situations that were hairy.
Literally, or?
And no, luckily there were no like giant balls of hair or anything, but
I heard
puke for sure.
I heard a horror story from G. She said that she went to go see a movie one time and she sat down and it was soaked in piss and urine.
Wow.
Yeah. So she says she checks every time now. But if you check her touching it, I don't know.
That's awful. But that's something that, like, I don't know if that happened. You could see that happening.
Like a little
An
kid
elderly
or
person or
something?
something.
Or an older
And
man.
it just seeps into the seat. You would never know. You would something smells funny.
Oh.
But theaters always smell funny. So
Yeah, they do.
it's not something that would be caught even by like an usher cleaning a theater. Because all the seat backs
Yeah,
are
what
flipped
are
up.
you
You're
gonna
just
do?
sweeping up the trash and whatnot, between movies.
I had
So that could totally
a
happen.
woman come up to me while I was management with a white looking substance on the back of her dress.
Oh my god.
And I walked back there with her, and it was clearly on the seat, whatever it was.
Oh no.
And the two of us were just kind of looking at each other because neither of us wanted to say it, but she did. So I'm like, yeah, I don't want to say it, but it's very possible that that's what it is. I'm sorry.
Sure.
Here's some
Without
free
sending it
tickets.
to the lab.
Here's a lot of free things. I'm sorry. Oh man.
That's disgusting.
So when we were recording last week with Chanel, we talked about marriage a little bit and how we were.
She just got married, right?
She is engaged. She
okay.
is getting married next year.
Oh, okay.
But Jam and I have had conversations about it being a contract, and in order to get out of the contract, you need to pay and possibly lose some of your assets. And
before
That's an
you
interesting take.
before you take the judgment on this, because Daniella's not being specific.
I have some expertise and experience in this field.
that's what we figured
But what I was trying to say was that when Daniella and I spoke about it, the whole love thing is great. Like it's amazing.
Yeah, love.
Right.
Yeah, love.
But the whole part about the government being involved and how you have to, you know what I mean? That's a part of it that we were sketched out about. And we just don't think it's. I don't think it's right, and I'm pretty sure you feel the same way, on how it's just so hard to get out of, like to get a divorce. You know what I mean?
Okay. Well, it's really not that hard to get a divorce. I mean, if you're talking it's just as hard. In order to get married, you have to get a license. You have all these legalities you have to go through.
Mm-hmm.
To get a divorce, if both people, it depends on the situation. If one person wants to divorce the other, if that other person does not want to leave the marriage, that creates problems. If both people both agree, we don't want to be married anymore, and you're not contesting each other, then you go there and you fill out a form and you get a divorce. The judge says, you're divorced. What makes it sticky is, like you said, assets.
Mm-hmm.
If you have money, if you own things jointly, because once you're married, if you buy a house and you're both on the mortgage, that's a big deal. You both owe the bank hundreds of thousands of dollars potentially, or you own the house outright, and now one of you is going to end up with the house and the other one is not. So now one of you has a $200,000 asset that the other one doesn't have. So you need to compensate that. You need to make things fair. So that's kind of where a lot of the minutia and a lot of the fighting goes on, is over assets.
Oh, really?
It's money.
And I was thinking like lawyer fees and that kind of thing too.
Yeah, well, you don't have to get a lawyer. I never got a lawyer.
Oh, really?
No.
Did your divorce go smoothly?
The actual divorce went fine. What the big problems in my divorce are, because we had no assets. We had no money. We didn't have a lot of debt. There wasn't a lot of things to split up. We didn't own a house together. We had some debt, but not a lot. So we basically, when we went to that part of it, where you're dividing assets, we debt that was in our own names. If there was an electric bill that was unpaid that was in my name, fine, that's my responsibility. If there was some other bill that was in her name, that was her responsibility. So we didn't fight over whatever's in my name, I'll be responsible for. Whatever's in your name, you'll be responsible for. There was really no big bank accounts to split up, or so there wasn't. Our issue has been the children, because we have 3 boys, and when we broke up, she took the kids to her parents' house, and I allowed that to happen. And so as time went on, over the next couple of months or so, where we decided that we were not going to get back together, we kind of decided it was best for the kids to stay with her at her parents' house, because I wasn't sure where I was going to go. So they were in a safe place, that's where they ended up. So when it came time to do all the divorce stuff, what I wanted to be able to do was be able to see kids as often as possible. Through a lot of different things, I left the area. I didn't have a place to go there. I didn't have a friend's couch to sit on I didn't have family, and I was in the Worcester area. Didn't have anywhere to go. So I ended up moving in with my brother in Connecticut, about 40 minutes away.
Okay.
So now, time went on. I didn't really see the boys at all. I saw them a couple times. I didn't have a driver's license at the time, so I didn't have a car. And I was about 40 minutes away by car. So when I first moved down there, I had told my youngest son, Liam, that I would go to he was having a musical production. He was in 3rd or 4th grade. And I had told him previously I'd be there. So I got on a bicycle and I rode it to his school. And it took me it was like a 6-hour bike ride.
Oh my God.
And I was sore as hell. But I was there.
Awesome.
And I went to it. And then I took a nap underneath a tree at a cemetery that was across the street from the school. Because I was like, oh, nice quiet place. And it was a hot summer day. And it was a nice tree there with some shade. And I lay down and I slept for like 2 hours. Got on the bike and I rode back. So, I was willing to do whatever it took to be able to try and, meet my commitments to the kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I started missing them a lot and tried to work out with her, ways for me to be able to see the kids, because I didn't have transportation, so it was tough. I was taking public transportation, which meant taking a bus to Hartford, from Hartford to Boston, from Boston back out to, it was a nightmare, and it was expensive.
Yeah.
So I did that for a while, and whenever I could get up there, I tried to get up there. She eventually started giving me a hard time about being able to see the kids, and actually the story kind of gets broader and broader. But what we ended up, to get back to what we were talking about, I ended up moving out here. My dad and my sister were out here, and once I moved out here, she started. And the reason I didn't want to leave Connecticut was it was only 40 minutes from the kids.
Right.
I had an issue that happened with my sister-in-law where I was staying with them, and she said that was fine. They would put a roof over my head, but they weren't going to give me any money. And I said, well, that's no problem.
Right.
I was there. I had no job. I had no money. I had nothing. So I started looking for jobs. About 3 months, I was talking to my sister, who's out here, wanting to know if there's anything that she could do to help. And said, there's 2 things that I need. I haven't found a job yet. There's 2 things that I need. I need a phone card for my phone, because I was still calling during this whole time, I'm calling my boys every single day.
Right.
Because I need to be able to talk to the boys. And I need a bus pass. So I was buying monthly bus passes, because it's the only way I could go around to apply for jobs. So the 2 of those for that month was going to be about $100. She said, no problem. I'm going to send you $100. Her and my dad each put $50 together, sent me $100 so I could buy a bus pass and a phone card. My sister-in-law found out about this, decided I had to leave her house. And I went to my brother and I said, is she serious? Really, I have to leave?
Right.
Because I accepted money from Dad and Jim.
Not you.
And she said, yeah, she didn't back down, so I didn't know where to go. So I called, I went online, and I saw, what do I do if I have nowhere to go? And you can dial 611, I think it is, which is, I don't know if it's Catholic Charities.
One of those types of.
I've heard of that before.
I want to say it's 611 or 311 or something. And I called them, and they said, okay, here's shelters in your area. So my brother drove me to a shelter, quote unquote, which was an old abandoned firehouse with cots. It was like stereotypical homeless shelter. Like you walk in there, and all I've got is a backpack, and I'm like, holy crap. And the guy said, you can stay, all the beds are taken, we'll put you in a boat. And I'm like, what's a boat? He goes, there's these big plastic canoe type things, and there's a stack of them, and you pull one out, and you put it on the floor, and there's a fat pad like about that thick that you put on it, and you lay down and you sleep.
Wow.
And that's where I stayed that night. The next morning I got up and I had a bicycle, and I got up and I'm like, what am I going to do? So I went to this shelter that was near to my brother's house, and this was like the Marriott of homeless shelters. And I went in there and I explained my story, and the woman said, she said, well, you'll see that room over there. There's a guy moving and stuff out of it. She said, that's your new room. And she gave me a little tour, and she's like, here's the shower, here's the kitchen. I'm like, there's a shower? This is fantastic. This is great. Okay. And I spent the better part of a year. I went into that shelter, stayed there for a couple of months, got an apartment, and then ended up deciding I was going to move out here. So I moved back into that shelter to save a little bit of money before moving out here. But during that year, she wouldn't let the kids come up to see me because I was in a homeless shelter.
Oh, yeah.
She wouldn't, when I was in the apartment, I had the apartment for like 3 months, and my sister kept telling me, you got to move up to Buffalo, just come out here. She's not letting you see the kids anyway, and I didn't want to come out here because I didn't want to move that far away from my kids. So her argument was, which I eventually bought into, she's not letting you see the kids anyways. What does it matter if you're 40 minutes away or if you're this far away? You can still get back there to see them, as often as you're seeing them now anyways.
Yeah.
So, I'm losing my train of thought now because there's so much of me leaving out even.
Let's say this is already a crazy story.
So
I can only imagine.
we get out. So I'm having trouble seeing the kids. I'm talking to them every day.
Right.
When I was in the apartment, I ended up saving up money. I ended up working back to the work ethic. 3 jobs, no car, no driver's license, a bicycle. And I was working at a supermarket in a deli. I was working at the movie theater out there, and I was working at L.L. Bean, selling shoes and canoes and stuff. So, saved up some money, got myself an apartment, and then realized that I'm working my ass off here, and I'm only making enough money to pay my rent and eat some food.
Yeah.
I'm not getting anywhere. This is not a long-term solution. I ended up coming out here. It just made more sense.
Mm-hmm.
So, didn't see the kids when I was in the apartment. I did have the kids come up one time during Christmas break. When they were on Christmas vacation, she let them come up. She wouldn't drive them out to me. I had no way to get them out there.
Right.
I could ride my bike for 6 hours, but
And then they can all
you
cling on
stack
to
the 3 of them on
you.
top of me, and so I actually had my pastor of my church. We both taught Sunday school for about 7 or 8 years at our church when we were married. And I called my pastor, and she agreed to drive the kids out, come out, pick them up. Okay. So the kids ended up coming out. It's fantastic. We had a great time. But then I didn't see them again after that for another couple of years.
Couple of years?
Yeah. So before our divorce was final, you have what you call temporary orders when there's kids and visitation involved. And she would do things like, she'd put a stipulation in there where if I wanted to see them for a week, let's say I wanted them to come out here for a week, I would have to let her know 30 days ahead of time. And there was one time where I wrote her an email saying, this is the dates and times I want to pick them up. Is this okay? Blah, blah, blah. She wouldn't answer my email until it was within 30 days and come back and say, you didn't give me 30 days notice. And I took her to court over this once a couple years ago.
Oh my God.
And I lost. And it's very, very frustrating working through, these kinds of things where she play these games. And
Right.
Did she have an issue with you? Like, what was the deal? Why didn't she want you to be with your
See, that's my big question now is what is her motivation for not wanting me to see the kids? I'm fighting her right now on something that the boys came out, well, one of them came out here last summer, came out here with horrible, horrible sunburn. Showed it to my sister, who's a nurse practitioner. Mm-hmm. She's like, oh my God, he should have gone to the emergency room because the layers of skin that had come off, she was worried about infection. Mm-hmm. I'm like, well, should I take him to the emergency room now? She's like, well, what they're going to do, they're going to give him a cream. At this point, there's nothing else you can do. She says, I'll write a prescription for the cream. It's silver sulfadiazide or something.
Yeah.
So she got me a prescription, put the cream on his sunburn. It was healed in a week. He also showed up with 2 antipsychotic drugs that I didn't know he was on. One was Prozac and one was Risperidone, which is a generic for, I don't remember what it's for. But I was very against him being on these drugs.
How old is this one?
This one is 12.
Oh my God.
So I called the doctor because I had the bottles and then had the doctor's name and prescribed them.
Mm-hmm.
Called the doctor and I had a conversation with him, and he didn't know that I was against him taking these drugs. And he said that my son had never been in for a formal diagnosis. So the Risperidone, he said that he wouldn't have normally prescribed that. He looked into his files a little more and he said that he prescribed that on the advice of his mother and this counselor that he'd been seeing. And his mother was complaining that he was having tantrums, destructive behavior, blah, blah, blah.
12.
Yeah. So I wasn't happy about this. So I said to my son, I said, look, if you feel like these help you and you want to continue taking these, that's fine. I'm not going to force you to take these while you're out here. If you don't want to take them, don't worry about it. So I asked the doctor about that. I'm like, is there any danger in me not giving him these drugs? And he said, no. He says, they're very low dosages. He says, there's no issue.
Okay, so it's not going to be any
went off
withdrawal
Right.
symptoms or anything.
So he said, there's no problem with that. So there's 2 issues now. And now I gave him a prescription drug to heal sunburn, cream. And I did not give him 2 prescriptions that were given to me to give to him. So this is ammunition, apparently, because she now will refuse, she's written me multiple emails refusing any further visitation.
Oh my goodness.
She said she went to court and is waiting for a court date to amend my visitation with them. So I didn't think I was going to get into all this. In our agreement, it clearly states when I'm supposed to have visitation. I'm supposed to have them out here 4 weeks a year. So
and that's solid, like 4 weeks
that's
is
now a
like
done
give or
divorce
take.
agreement. That's not even a temporary order or anything.
Right.
That's in our divorce agreement. So that's supposed to be ironclad. We're not supposed to go from that. So I went just a few weeks ago, or last week, I went and filed for contempt that she's against this order and was not following through on this order. She didn't show up for the court date, so now there's a habeas out apparently. So we'll see what happens with that.
If you don't mind me asking, what caused the fallout?
Where did this conversation start? What caused the fallout?
Yeah.
That's a long story.
Okay.
We were married. We were together for almost 20 years.
Wow.
We had a 2-year engagement. We lived together for like 2 years. We had a 2-year engagement on top of that because we wanted to make sure, we wanted to, let's not jump into this, we're not going anywhere. Let's, we were in no hurry. Planned it all out, had a fantastic wedding. Everyone in my family, was like, you guys had the best wedding. Everyone had such a great time. Everybody was drunk, dancing, craziness, and everyone just had a great time. Big wedding, First 10 years or so were good, and we started to kind of grow apart. And we had some disagreements on how we wanted the future to go. And as those got more and more, as the future became more and more real, and we weren't agreeing on things, it just kind of went downhill. The last 5 years or so, I'd say, were more, not as good.
And that's part of my argument.
I can't stop when I start talking about this.
That's part of my argument because
Okay.
people change, circumstances change.
Right.
You meet different people that are coming in and out of your life.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
I think we had like just a fundamental. When I look at the 2 of us now, we have very different people. And we had good communication when we first got married. We would stay up all night talking and stuff, and
Right.
talking about how we feel about things, and we agreed on most things, disagreed on some things, but not major. Like I can't be with you.
So you did have those discussions about finances, kids, like the big issue
Finances
discussions?
was a big one that we didn't discuss a whole lot.
Okay.
Neither of us had money. Neither of us came from money. We had no assets when we
Right.
got started. We have very different work ethics, which played itself out over time. That gap got wider and wider and wider. And I know the way I am, and she wasn't really going the same way. And some animosity creeps in and grows. And
So in the beginning of your relationship, you
or at least when you guys got engaged, you did not think that you guys were going to grow apart?
Of course not. Who thinks that?
I was just wondering.
You know, oh, I love you, I want to marry you.
Right.
I bet in like 20 years we're not going to be so close.
Well, that's
you don't think about that.
Yeah, so I guess that's why I think Danielle and I fall onto the same side when it comes to marriage and why we think it's somewhat of a contract. Because situations like this, you know, like I don't know, it's hard because your kids obviously is what's most important to you.
Right.
So I just don't see why you could keep someone away from a parent unless they're dangerous or whatever.
The thing is that, like, I don't have a criminal record. There was never any violence. Like, I never beat my wife. You know what I mean? There's no history of that at all. I don't have a single violent episode in my history. There's no, you know, I'm not a drug abuser.
Right.
There's no
nothing she can point at.
I'm not a danger to the children. So she will find things like this. She wrote me a nasty email about, you know, you gave my son a prescription that, you know, wasn't prescribed to him. You gave, you know, the sunburn cream. You didn't give him the prescriptions that he was, you know, supposed to be given. Well, after I talked to the doctor, no, I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And the doctor actually talked to him after that week. He was like, you know, how was Liam during, you know, when he was up to visit? He was fine. He was a peach. Never had an issue. Never had an argument. And just an interesting side note that I got to throw in. And I'm forgetting that this is recording this, but when I dropped him off after that week that he was here with the sunburn and everything, only him came out because my older two had jobs. They didn't want to come out that week, so that's fine. So I dropped him off at home, and I say to my ex-wife, I said, you know, would it be all right if I grab the other two boys? We just go out for lunch, go get some pizza or something before I head back. She says, yeah, that's fine. So I said to Liam, I said, you know, go ahead, bring your stuff into the house, grab your brothers, and, you know, tell them we'll go out, we'll go to the pizza place. He says, okay. He goes in there. The other two come out, you know, big hug, how you doing, blah, blah, blah. We're in the car, we're talking. Liam comes out, gets in the car, and he's in tears. I'm like, Liam, what happened? He goes, well, I just got yelled at. I said, why'd you get yelled at? He goes, well, I went in my room, and Abby was standing there the whole week. Now, this is my wife's current boyfriend's daughter who's living with them as well.
Okay.
She's older than my oldest. She's like 18 or 19 now. But she stayed, I think she was staying on their couch at the time. She used Liam's room while he wasn't there. Fine, whatever.
Yeah.
He says, but, you know, her stuff was everywhere. I don't know where my stuff is. And the cat box was all over, there's cat litter all over the floor. They keep the cat box in his room, and he's responsible for cleaning it. Apparently, no one cleaned it all week. And he said there was cat litter everywhere. And he walked in and saw this, you know, he was upset.
Yeah, I would have been too.
Upset. He explained this to me, and I'm like, I don't blame you. I'd be upset too,
Yeah.
you know. But this is the kind of thing that, and he throws a temper tantrum or something because he's under this stress all the time, and the stress of his parents being separated.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was only 7. He was 7 when we got separated. So I mean, he's been dealing with this, and you know, so the kids get stressed. You don't put them on Prozac.
Right.
You know, you help them deal with the stress.
Right. Here's a magic pill. Everything will go away.
And that's what worries me. So she, you know, it seems like she wants to take the easy way out. So now she is using this as ammunition against me, saying that I'm irresponsible with the children. I shouldn't be trusted with the children because I don't give them their prescriptions, and I give them prescriptions that they don't, you know, that they didn't have.
I mean, hopefully
It depends on which side you listen to. So she tells her friends these stories.
That's obnoxious, right?
I'll tell you these stories, and you see it from my side only, and you have a completely different opinion. So it's, you know, it's tough.
I wonder what the kid's story would be. You know what I mean? Like there's.
And I tried. The kids don't want to. They don't want to get involved in differences between me and my wife.
Yeah,
And
that's
I don't blame
tough,
them at all.
for sure.
And I went to a parenting class before the divorce, and that's one thing that they teach you is that you need to keep the kids out of it. You don't talk about your ex to the children. You don't do anything through them. Hey, what does your mother say about me? What has your mother been doing? You know, blah, blah, blah. There's none of that. And it's difficult. It's really difficult sometimes because all I want to do is say, you know, because I know that she's, you know, they volunteered things to me, you know, but I don't ask. I don't, you know, and I try not to, you know, I try as hard as I can. I'm not always 100% successful. I try as hard as I can not to be negative towards her, not to just leave her out of the conversation. But then it's difficult to know how they're feeling. You know, 'cause I just want to say, how do you feel about this? What's going on? And you really can't.
Without kind of leading them towards a certain feeling or direction.
So it's hard. So I'm kind of biding my time. I mean, as they're getting older, they're starting to understand more. My oldest son, Ben, I've had conversations with where he's starting to understand a little bit more.
How old has Ben?
He is 17.
Yeah.
And he's probably going to hear this at some point. Hi, Ben. Love you, buddy.
Sorry, Ben. So Ben was Liam's age when the divorce started happening.
Yeah.
Okay, that's crazy to think about.
I know.
Yeah.
I know, and I'm not watching them grow up. Like when I see them now and they've grown, you know. I mean, there was a time when Ben went through his growth spurt. He's a man. He's as tall as I am. He's a big guy now, and I'm like, wow, you know. And it's awful that that I've missed a lot, but hopefully things are gonna change soon.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and just to try to attempt to be a parent from that distance has got to be.
It's very difficult.
Because you have your own life too, and you're trying to involve your kids who are so far away, like, and then your ex-wife who's just, Jesus, I just want to ask her so many questions.
It's very difficult. You know, there's not a whole lot you can do because I'm not at home with them every day. So,
and you're not getting the information as to what's going on in school and.
Right. Well, I do get. I mean, I'm in contact with all their schools, so I get their grades, and I talk to them about their grades, and they go kind of up and down.
Right.
So I mean, there is that, but I'm not there to help with homework. And I've asked Andrew at one point, and he was really struggling, and so in a certain class that you're failing right now, is the work too hard? Is it that you don't get the work? Is it that you just aren't doing the work? And he would sometimes give me straight answers, sometimes not. He doesn't want to get berated, and if I only get to talk to him once a week, and if I spend my whole half an hour conversation with him saying, you need to get these grades up, next time I call, no, I'm not talking to Dad, he's going to yell at me about my grades.
Yeah,
and it's easy for him not to. All he has to do is not pick up the phone.
Right.
So that's tough too. It's like you can't be strict as a parent as you want to be, because you want to be able to talk to them.
Right.
It's really hard.
Yeah, I never thought about it that way, where you want to kind of impose your parenthood on them, but if you do it too much, they're gonna kind of pull away a little bit because that's the only thing they're getting from you.
Right.
Where I mean, ideally you could do that and spend like some hangout time and talk about other things, and it almost makes me think, from the conversation earlier, that your ex probably isn't helping them with the homework or giving them that guidance.
No, the word that I got from Andrew, because I asked him point blank one time, I said, if you're doing homework and you need help with it, do you ask your mother for help?
Oh, yeah.
And he said to me, this is a while back, but he said to me on this occasion that, he said, no. He said, Mommy and Jimmy go into their room at 8 o'clock, and I don't want to knock on their door, because a lot of times if I knock on their door, they'll yell at me. So in other words, that was kind of like the way the house ran was 8 o'clock, they go in their bedroom, you guys are kind of on your own.
Figure it out.
Don't bother us unless the house is burning down, kind of thing.
Right.
That's the impression that I got. And I'm like,
So Ben's 17, Andrew's
15.
Okay, and Liam's 12.
Yeah.
Oh, they're not too far apart from each other, I guess.
No.
No,
we had Ben and Andrew, we had a boy, and we had another boy. We were only going to have 2.
Yeah.
And then a couple years went by, and I'm like, excited to go for the girl. Got another boy, and that was enough.
Yeah.
No more boys.
Are they very close, the brothers?
It's hard for me to judge now.
Okay.
Back then they were. They've kind of grown apart a little bit, but that's completely normal.
Yeah.
Andrew and Ben will hang out together and have some of the same friends and things, because they're only a year apart in school.
Yeah.
Liam is a couple years behind them, so he's kind of like the little brother.
Yeah.
And I get on the 2 older ones all the time about, watch out for your little brother. He's going through stress, and he needs your guys' support, but that's my little brother, and I just kind of treat him like crap sometimes. And
That's how it is, though.
I know, so that's not abnormal, but I still hate to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially in those kinds of situations where they're all kind of going through the same thing, and the other brothers are the only ones that can really understand what's going on,
Right.
In depth. So I don't know. You would think that would. I'm sure that does create a certain bond between them.
I hope so.
Yeah.
But
What do you think?
back to marriage.
Yeah.
You were talking about. Now, is the question whether to get married or whether not to get married? Was it?
No, that was. I think it was just. I don't really know. I think we just like that kind of everything you're saying kind of validates how we feel. To be honest with you.
And how do you feel?
I feel like if I love someone and I want to be committed to them, I am committed to them spiritually.
Mm-hmm.
And if shit changes, then that the spiritual bond will break, and it will whatever. We'll go our separate ways, and and I don't think that any of that has to be involved. So, like any contracts or any,
Right.
you know what I mean? Like if I have, let's say I have a kid with someone, we're not married, but just who I am, I wouldn't prevent that person from seeing our kid. You know what I mean? Or
Well, you say that now.
right. It depends who they
The
are.
person that you
for
want to
sure.
be
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
But I mean, the way I always looked at marriage was not the the legalities and the piece of paper and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
She ended up leaving me. And our marriage was going down the drain.
Yeah.
I never would have left because for two reasons: the children, at least until the children were grown, to adults. And the second reason is that I took more seriously the oath that I took. I stood up before 200 people, all family and friends, almost everybody that I knew at the time was at my wedding. And I stood up in front of all those people, and I promised that I was going to love and honor this person for the rest of my life. And I didn't take that lightly. I don't care what the paper said that's filed at the county clerk's office,
Mm-hmm.
or anything else. That was what was important to me. I did not want to break that promise that I made. Things go south, you try and fix them. You try and you do what you can. Sometimes it's not fixable, and it's easier to leave. It would have been a lot harder to stay together. I wouldn't have left. In hindsight, just unfortunately, what's happening with the kids is the bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
But in hindsight, the best thing that ever happened to me in my life, personally, was getting away from her.
Mm-hmm.
And I've reflected on it a lot and thought about it a lot. And she was toxic to me. She held me. I would do things that I wouldn't normally do for her.
Mm-hmm.
Having her not being a part of my decision making has helped me a lot. And I've gotten a lot further in life than I would have gotten still being attached to her. So it was a good thing that she left. But to me, marriage is more that promise that you made, not only to this person, but to everybody I know. I promised that I'm going to, and that's that's your whole life. That's more scary than, signing your mortgage. That's only 20, 30 years. But, so I wouldn't have ended it.
Well, that's the
But
thing
I'm glad
of
it
it.
ended.
So that's where
So-
it gets tricky because
Right, exactly.
you want to be able to keep a promise, but at what point is the promise just making you miserable? And
Right.
now,
Needs to be.
yeah, I mean, I don't know.
So is
That's
the answer just not to make the promise to begin with?
just like, we'll see what happens.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it is. Maybe that is. It would say like.
That's a personal decision, I think, for everybody, though.
I think two people would.
There's a right or wrong way to think about it.
Right, there's not, but both people have to be on the same page.
Yeah.
I think it's healthy to realize that things aren't always going to be the way they are right now.
Yeah, I think that is true.
You're going to change, I'm going to change, we may change in the same direction, or we may change in two different directions. I can't say that now, you can't say that now.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's so unromantic, like,
Right.
you want to be able to...
It's not just the warm and fuzzy, I love you, I can't imagine not being with you, I want to be with you for the rest of my life.
Right.
Do you think that
And
has to do with generation too?
Well, I mean, things have changed. I mean, even if you just look at the divorce rate,
Yeah.
just has skyrocketed, and maybe it's because we've accepted it more as a society, or maybe we're rushing into things more, and who knows.
Because I know a lot of like my parents' friends who have admitted to me that they are still in the marriage because of their kids, or whatever it is, or because it's too hard to split the assets or whatever they want to deal with it, whatever the reason is, they're still together. And I feel like nowadays, in the newer generations, it's kind of like I have friends now that are my age that are married, and I just recently saw one of them going through a divorce, and
He's going through divorce at 22, 23.
yeah, they got married at 18.
Yeah, that's tough.
Everybody's getting married now, like it's crazy. But now they're getting a divorce, and it's just they seem okay with it. I don't know, unless they're hiding it. Like they're just like, oh yeah, like whatever. And I think they're like dating other people now.
Well, at that age, I mean, they probably are.
Yeah,
Who's
'cause you
trying
didn't
to be married from
experience, like-
18?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely anti people getting married that young.
Yeah,
I mean,
me
I was
too.
26 when I got married.
That's not bad.
And I suggest being at least that old.
Your frontal lobe isn't fully developed until 26.
Well, there
You
go.
can't make a decision
Well,
properly.
you can.
I actually just read this article recently that said, based on statistics, that the perfect age to get married is between the ages of 27 and 32. Supposedly. I don't know if that's true or not, but...
I mean, that sounds right.
There's no perfect age or time.
Right,
Or,
right.
Yeah.
You can't really put a number.
I'll say, because I got 5 years, it's cool.
But you have people that are high school
Time.
sweethearts, they get married and they're married their entire lives and
Yeah.
quote unquote
Well,
happy.
my parents actually, my mom's first boyfriend was my dad, and still hitched.
Yeah.
Chilling.
My parents got together very young,
Yeah.
and I don't know that they
See,
dated many
that
other
just
people.
causes all the controversy now. I don't know anymore.
But I think
There's no easy answer. That's the only answer.
The central thing is if you grow in the same direction or you grow in different directions.
I think that is exactly right. Like, because when you see two people that have been married 50, 60 years, elderly people, and you wonder, like, that you don't have the same strong feelings. Like initially you have you're attracted to that person, sexual feelings. As time goes on, do you have similar interests? Do you do things together? Do you both like to travel? Do you both like to, you get along with each other? You like each other's company. When the initial infatuation kind of wears off, and you get more into middle age now, are you comfortable with each other's careers, and you start thinking about retirement stuff, and as you go through those different stages of life, do you still kind of think the same way?
Right.
Yeah, that's wild.
And
I don't think there's no way you can forecast that. You just hope.
You just gotta ride it through, man.
I mean, when we first got married, I imagined me and my wife being elderly together and being best friends, and now, 20-something years later, I couldn't even imagine. I would have no desire to hang out with her,
It's just so crazy.
I desperately want to get along with her, I mean, and I even asked, and we kind of had our ups and downs between, when we were fighting over visitation with the kids, and other times where we were more amiable. I think she might have been on medication at some point. That's not a joke. But anyways, there was actually one point where we were kind of getting along. We were actually talking to each other now and then, and we were agreeing, and things were going okay. I was seeing the boys, and I asked my son, I think it was Andrew, one time about when I dropped them off, if her and Jimmy, if all of us wanted to go and get something to eat before I left, And I, at the time, didn't think that would be weird at all.
No.
And he's like, no. And he's like, that would be totally weird. Why would you ever want to do that, I mean, because he lives with her and Jimmy, this boyfriend. So that's kind of his home.
Stop. Do you guys have the same name?
Yeah.
That is okay. All right.
We're not similar people.
All right. I just clicked to me. You guys have the same name.
Yeah. Anyways.
Sorry.
But Andrew he's a little freaked out by that, And if I put myself in his shoes, I can kind of see that just being weird. Like,
It's totally weird.
My mom and her new boyfriend that's my dad over here. Like, you know, they're not supposed to all be in the same room.
Yeah.
You know, that's you know.
But ideally, that's how it would work out. That everybody kind of gets
Would get
along, and we can
Well, and
co-parent.
it brought up a memory of my pastor, who I'm close with. She went through a divorce, and her kids are now adults. I think they're in college. But she brought up a story that was very similar to that, where she gets along really well with her ex-husband.
Mhm.
She's now since married again,
Mm.
and her kids, I think she said it was her daughter, went to her one time, and she's like, you know, it's just really weird seeing you and Dad like hanging out together, like at like a Christmas dinner or something. Like she would go to like his house for Christmas dinner or something, you know, and they had significant others, so there'd be like 4 of them now,
Right.
and all just getting along and being chummy, you know, and they were fine. But the kids were like just freaked out, like this is just weird. It's just very uncomfortable for the kids.
It's probably because they have like their younger son are just they fantasize like, oh, it's supposed to be just mom and dad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like mom and dad, that's just who it's supposed to be. And
And
then they see them not like that at all, and then
Yeah, and maybe it's an issue too where it's a complicated relationship, and that's too much for a kind of
Yeah.
small brain to
Take all
to work
that.
around. Yeah,
Right,
like
Right,
wait,
you're supposed to have mom and dad.
this isn't black and
Yeah.
white.
Now, mom and dad
so-
are different people that they're attached. That whether they, it's not the way it's supposed to be.
But they still.
And they're okay with this. They shouldn't be okay
Does
with
everybody know?
this. So.
their kids are probably tripping, man. I think a lot of my friends were actually kids of divorce. A lot of them are.
Oh yeah, when my kids first started going to school, it was more.
Yeah.
We were in the minority that when my kids were actually had a mom and dad at home.
Yeah.
Most of them had single parent homes.
Yeah, I always was. When people asked my parents were still together, they were actually
Yeah.
surprised.
Yeah, me too. Wow, that's
Like really? Wow, like 2 parents? That's weird.
not 4? Oh. 4 and like your mom's best friend?
But
Yeah.
anyway, so that's a bunch of stuff that I didn't think I was going to get into.
Well, thanks.
Yeah.
Hey, no problem.
Thanks for coming on the podcast.
It'll be interesting
dude.
to listen to this back, and because I don't remember everything that I.
That always.
Did I share things I maybe shouldn't have shared? I don't know. But it's going to be on the internet now,
Oh,
folks.
God.
Forever.